Well, certainly President Trump has said he will move things in accordance with the law and in cooperation with Congress. He certainly knows that if there are statutes or laws that are governing where they need to be, we'll have to abide by the law.
So that means you're not going to move them because the votes aren't there.
No, that means we will work with Congress. We'll partner with Congress. We'll find out where the laws that govern these are. How do the laws
But you have to
impact
change the
what they
law.
work? Not necessarily. We are going to look to see how we are governed. And if we have to change the law, if we need to work with Congress, if Congress doesn't agree, then we'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Well, and
I want to work with. I want
the votes.
Congress.
The votes aren't there, so it sounds like I think what people should know and listening to you is none of what we're talking about is going to happen imminently.
I've been on the job, I think this is my third week coming up. But during my confirmation process, as I talked to senators on both sides who did have concerns, and I said, look, I want to work in partnership with you because our goal is to make sure that we are providing the best education for students in our country. We cannot be last in the world in education because we are impacting our national security. We are impacting those next, second, and third generations that are coming along. It is up to us and our responsibility to make sure we are giving them the best access to education. They're not going to be disrupted, and it really does rest from the federal level on the funding. So the funding is appropriated by Congress. It flows through to the states. But am I, the Secretary of Education sitting in Washington, going to have a view into a schoolroom where a teacher is trying to take care of a student with special needs? Or is that going to happen better at the local level where that teacher, in cooperation with the parents and the local school officials, has more opportunity to make sure that student's needs are taken care of? That's where it needs to lie. But if they don't have the funding, if they don't have the support from Congress to continue to appropriate that money, then that's where the students can really, fall through the cracks. I certainly hope, I would like to see even more funding go to the states for that. And if it rests with HHS, which is one of the suggestions, that funding clearly is going to continue to come from Congress. And we want to make sure that those students do have those special services and those needs which they have, which is really monitored and taken care of at the state level. Well, a lot of the funding that goes into states now goes with a lot of red tape, a lot of strings attached to it. And so governors and state superintendents of education have said, look, if we have the funding coming in which allows us to be more creative, how can we spend that? The president believes, as I do, that the best education is that's closest to the students. And I want to look at some of the states that have been incredibly great over the last couple of years, like Louisiana. Their NAEP score showed that they had improved the most of any states. Those were programs that were put in place by the governors, by the superintendent of education, not having anything to do with the Department of Education in Washington. So what we need to do is to make sure that the funding has a clear path, the funding continues, but that the states are allowed to spend the money where they need to spend it, to hire teachers, increase their salaries, make sure that our students with special needs are taken care of. And that's what we want to make sure that happens. I think the president was very clear. The outward-facing programs that are going to be affecting students there's not going to be any defunding for those programs. When he talked about student loans, that would be going to the Small Business Administration, and also then the programs for students with disabilities will more than likely rest in HHS, which, by the way, is where they began. I think we're looking at putting things in different departments where they can operate very efficiently as we look on how we can shut down the Department of Education.
Do they not operate efficiently now?
Not as well as they should be. As a matter of fact, the president campaigned on the fact that he wanted to close down the Department of Education. And what we saw with our scores recently with the NAEP, which is our country's report card, I mean, it's unacceptable where education is in our country today.